Good day, everyone. Good day, sir. Welcome to our virtual presentation of our research, which entitled The Pros and Cons of Online Class with Student Views. To present our introduction, may I call on Miss Mascareñas and Mr. Martel.
Online classes have come handy during this summer. A lot of schools have been shut down because of the pandemic. Through conducting the online class, students can continue and pursue their studies. Furthermore, in conducting online class, there can be both advantages and disadvantages, and researchers will try to discuss it in a student's point of view. Online class is simply classes on the internet with the help of technology. Students and teachers meet what we call virtual meetings. Most of the pros and cons of it deals with the issue of flexibility, technology, time management, and student engagement. Basically, this study is to find different interpretations and analogies in order to draw conclusions. Regarding unvaried data that is gathered about the pros and cons of the online class. This topic is important in today's times as many students or educators transition their way of learning into a digital one. This online class set as an alternative to the traditional way of learning, and as much of the various advantages it has, there are some challenges that students experience in this new way of learning.
Therefore, this study would contribute a broader knowledge and able to understand the community of having online class, since we consider that this is our new normal setup of classes, so there is possibility that every student is trying to adjust their new academic style of learning. Through this, researchers, this will give benefit not just to the reader but to the researchers at the same time. There might be a lot of suggestions in order to make the study more relevant and useful. This can also be our references to other researchers in finding more evidences. Finally, the objective of this study is to draw more conclusion and gather different data to simplify pros and cons of studying of online class.
And now, to present our background study, may I call on Miss Parilla, Mr. Padao, and Mr. Porras.
The coronavirus disease of 2019 gradually changed the education globally. To contain the spread of the virus, many countries have enforced restrictive measures to lessen the gathering and formations of crowds. With this, it came to the point to shut down all the schools across the world to avoid the virus disease. Fortunately, the closing of schools did not entirely stop education, but changed it by way of looking for alternative ways to provide access to education. The education institutions around the world have responded to the school closures by holding their classes online to ensure that students will still be able to study at home and still learn. The pandemic results in a new normal recruit of the world which induce new approaches to learn and educate. Across the globe, many schools and universities transforms institution from face-to-face interaction to an online placing due to the lockdowns that were imposed through the government. Online learning has transpired to be a necessary aid for college students and schools all over the world. This has a set of positive and negatives that needs to be addressed. So according to Gautam P., the teachers have an efficient way to provide lessons to students through online learning. Since these are several tools like videos, PDFs, podcasts, and teachers can use all these tools as part of their lesson plans. Besides, it allows students to attend classes from any location of choice, which give access to learning at the time of their comfort. There's a struggle in online learning. So there's a struggle in focusing on the screen for long periods since there is a tendency for students to be easily distracted by social media or other sites. Another challenge or of online classes is the internet connectivity. There are still smaller cities and towns which has inconsistent connections. So online learning is a new way of education that the world has had to adopt. And the question that arises is on how these challenges or on how countries respond and adapt to the challenges that constitute online classes. So in Indonesia, upon the rise of COVID-19, the closure of schools from affected 62.5 million students from pre-primary to higher education. With this, just like the other countries, they have implemented online lessons and are going through many challenges. So the chairwoman of the Indonesian Teachers Association, Unifa Rashidi, stated that students in rural areas, which make up 40% of students in the country, struggle to keep up with the virtual learning due to the poor internet access. So it forced teachers to make visits for an in-person lessons. Because of the unequal internet access and terrible network coverage, many teachers are unable to teach the exceptional of their ability. So there are also cases in Indonesia where students have both no smartphone or internet access at all. Another problem of online classes in Indonesia is the lack of help and motivation of parents to the students. Those parents from poor families cannot give support due to the limited facilities such as not having a smartphone or internet data.
So, what are the countries who had experienced or still experiencing this issue or problem? Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam had experienced different kinds of online problems. How did they experience this issue or problem? According to the School Education Gateway 2020, the survey findings revealed that almost all respondents' schools have switched to some form of or distance teaching since the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. And over 60% believe that school practices will not be the same when they reopen, with more online distance teaching and for learning than before. For two-thirds of respondents, the closure of schools has led to their first experience with online teaching, which has been both positive and challenging. Struggling to adapt was the most pleasant surprise. According to 66% of respondents, this accompanied by a loss of motivation, 43%, a broad variety of physical connections, 42%, network, content, connectivity, and resource usability, 34%, and versatility or time management, 18%. These three countries are only few examples of countries that are having difficulty implementing online classes in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many people in these countries were concerned that their internet connection would be inadequate to facilitate online learning. Many people raised complaints about the learning environment and usability of paying technology when operating off campus. Furthermore, many students do not have access to the internet, excluding them from participating in online learning. Other Southeast Asian schools and universities may face comparable, if not worse, difficulties due to greater digital divides.
Good day everyone, my name is Rowan Dominic Ramos Porras. As COVID-19 cases continue to rise in the Philippines, most schools have adopted online teaching and learning to keep students safe and help to control the spread of the virus. The online learning setup is a combination of synchronous learning at the same time with classmates and a teacher, learning at any time that works for the student. Schools have also picked their platform for communication and teaching lesson virtually. Still, a lot of students, teachers, and parents are not thrilled about this method because of its many challenges. It's not perfect, that's for sure, but there are also good things that can come out of it. Here are some of here are some of the pros and cons of the online learning. With COVID-19 with COVID-19 case escalating by the thousand every day, it won't be surprised if we just decide to stay inside our homes for the next couple of years. Online learning reduces the risk of contracting of the virus. Student only need to go turn on their gadget and enter the virtual classroom. It's education without leaving your home also. This is probably the biggest advantage of the online learning in the Philippines. You don't need to catch a ride and the crack of dawn just to make it your 7 a.m. class. There's no need to queue at the bus station or the MRT and waste precious hours. You also don't need to spend money on transportation or parking fees. This money can go to other important expenses or priorities. Online learning also means increased time shared between children and their parents. There is more active participation as a parents create a positive learning environment and support their children with whatever they need for the online learning setup. And because there is no need to travel and from school and sit through hours of traffic. You also have more time to spend with each other throughout the day. Furthermore, as long as there is a stable and reliable internet connection, of course, you can study anywhere you want in a house that is conducive to learning. Whether it's not in living room, the lanai, or your bedroom is a lot of cozier and more comfortable than your usual chair and desk in the classroom. With online learning, you can set your alarm, do your morning routines, and turn on your computer to start your day of learning. During your lunch break, you can enjoy a delicious home-cooked meal. And when class are over, you can rest or even take a nap before you tackle your homework. In short, you can study and relax in equal measure. In the classroom, almost everything is prepared by your teacher. All you need to do is show up for class, pay attention, and learn something. With online learning, you are responsible for the tools and apps. You will need to be able to follow the lesson, participate in discussion, and submit your assignments. If you never used an app before, you need to learn how to create an account as well as navigate the app. Online learning also encourage you to be resourceful when it comes to research and presentation by using alternative methods and making most of what you have at home. However, online class also have a disadvantage here in the Philippines. Aside from the issue of slow and unstable internet that cause videos to freeze and streaming to be disconnected, there may be problem with the ambient noise that can be too distracting, like dog barking, tricycle passing by, construction noise from the neighbor, just to name a few. And because students are at home, they are also the tendency to feel sleepy and lazy. Internet subscription, laptops, smartphones, and tablets are not exactly cheap. Students who are from the marginalized sector definitely won't be able to afford this. Moreover, not all of the educators are adept at using the latest technology. Maybe they haven't needed to be because they utilize other tools and methods to teach. Or maybe their school are not equipped with it. Student and teacher only get to talk on video calls and social media platforms. There's very different in actual classroom where they can sit together, chat, share a joke, handle for group activities, and many more. With online learning, you only get to interact with what you see and hear on your screen. This graph 1 shows the 50% the respondents said online learning reduced the risk of contracting the virus. Among these, students can only need to go turn gadgets and enter the virtual classroom. 40% of this said that because of this online learning in the Philippines, most all don't need to catch a ride and crack of dawn just to make it to your 7 a.m. class. 35% must have an increased time shared between children and parents. 40% also have enough time to rest and only need to do is set your alarm for daily routines and turn the computer or any gadget that reliable for online class. And there's 50% of advancement of using technology by adding some application for prepared to be able to follow the lesson, participating in the discussion and submit some of assignment and project. Lastly, 40% of students to have the freedom to learn because of the online learning methods. As long as there is a stable and reliable internet connection. Crypto shows the 85% that the student often experience aside from the issue of slow and stable internet that cause video to freeze and streaming to be disconnected. There may be problem with ambient noise that can be distracting like dogs barking, tricycle passing by, construction noise from neighbor, just name a few. 65% cannot afford online class because of the financial by some gadgets like laptops, smartphones, and tablets for their online class. 20% of this will be not all educators are adept at using the latest technology. And the 30% of students and teachers only get to talk on video calls and social media platforms.
And lastly, to present our solving the issue, may I call on Mr. Mamayabay and Miss Maloney.
So now we will discuss the disadvantages of online class and how can we solve those issues. So first, the physical connections. Second, lack of motivation. Third is time management. Fourth is connectivity issues. And last is struggling to adapt. So physical connection. So we all know that distance learning is now occurred because of the global pandemic. So how can we solve it? Teachers can conduct forums, group chats, or webinars in order to have time with the students by exchanging questions or thoughts about the course. Second, teachers can create imitation that imitate real life scenarios about the topic. So because of this, this can make students more excitement and engage to listen to the teachers. So next is a lack of motivation. So this is the one of the problem for students around the world because they are not interested in online class because they are more comfortable in face-to-face classes. So how can we solve it? First is students should think positively and engage self-talk positively so that they can maintain their focus to online class effectively. Next is teachers can make or create contests between them like prizes, certificates, or plus grades. So next is time management. So nowadays this kind of issue is also an advantage for students because they can take their quizzes, exams, assignments anywhere and anytime. So but too much flexibility can make conflict between their personal responsibilities in an online class. So how can we solve it? So first is organize a schedule that make you comfortable, that your personal responsibilities will not be affected. Second, abandon the things that interrupts you like gaming, social media, internet, and etc. In this way, you could focus on your course without any distraction. So we all know that students are more more on social media. So next issue is connectivity issue. So we all know here in the Philippines we have poor connection. We need to go to other place to find a better connection. So how can we solve this issue? So first, students can change their internet to have a higher speed internet. So now we have a new telecommunity. It's called Dito. So we can change. They said that it is a higher speed of internet. So check next is check out any public libraries or either cafes with a better internet connections, so we can do our online class effectively. Lastly, struggling to adapt. So we all know that most of the students that they didn't know how to use gadgets, so they are not comfortable in doing an online class. So how can we solve it? So as a students that are not too much capable in online classes, they must be passionate in taking the online education by asking more questions to instructors in order to adapt easily. So in order for us to understand, so we need to ask more questions to our professors. Next is with a new way of learning, instructors and especially new classmates try to have exchanging conversations with your classmates that are willing to learn, that help you as a struggling student to boost your confidence.
Good day, everyone. The question that I'm going to answer is the question, is the problem already eradicated now? And my response to that question is that the problem is not yet eradicated in terms of the online class because the pandemic is still going on. However, some countries are already conducting their physical classes and students can go to their respective schools. But here in the Philippines, the situation in our country is that we are still conducting the online class as a mode of learning because students are not allowed to go to their respective schools because of this COVID. And one of the problem in this online class is that the internet connectivity, so the students cannot communicate properly or they cannot conduct their online class because of their internet connectivity, because of the poor connection. And of course, the financial problem. Not all students can afford the gadgets because gadgets are expensive nowadays. And the physical connection that you have in the physical classes is far different from the online classes because you get to interact with other people, and we cannot interact with other people right now because of the pandemic. And that is the situation here in the Philippines regarding this kind of problem with the online classes.
Individual conclusion. Me first. My own individual conclusion about our research is that the purpose of this study is to understand the current status of the student views about the pros and cons of online class, the participation and online activities regarding online class during the pandemic situation. The result shows that Philippines have an average level of preparedness for online class as there are certain limitations related to attending the classes and doing the activity through online class. In terms of multiple factors in the online class, a major disparity between rural and urban student is also revealed. Therefore, I conclude that online class is kinda difficult than face-to-face. However, it has an advantage in terms of safety, efficiency, and accessibility of time and place. It allows students to stay in their house, attend their class through online. Also, it allows schools to reach out to more extensive network of the students, but the disadvantage of online class is lack of internet, lack of motivation, and sense of isolation. Internet trouble rather.
The pandemic brought a lot of changes in the way we live, from using face mask, face shield, and the observance of the social distancing. So, the one of the effects of the pandemic, especially or particularly to those students, is the online class. So, the online class is a new mode of learning since the pandemic hit the world. So, the online class has both positive and negative effects. So, the positive effect is that students can have more time with their families and bond with them, and students can also save money from the transportation to food that they spend their money with. And of course, we get to learn despite of this pandemic because of the online class. However, on the other side of that is the negative effect. So the negative effect is that not all students are privileged enough to conduct the online class, and some students are having internet problems, and some students cannot adapt to this online class because they are used to the physical classes. So my conclusion here is that each student has different perspectives on how they view the online class, whether it is a positive effect or a negative effect. So that would be all. Thank you.
Based on the background of the study, this research is aimed to give valid information about the different result of pros and cons studying of online class. In this study, researchers will achieve and know the core of the study to help widen the perspective, understand and share ideas to help other students to deepen their views about the reality of our online class today. This research aims to discuss the students' view about the pros and cons of conducting the online class. The pros and cons of online class consist of several argumentation which leads into concrete ideas. In this study, many things to consider on how to avoid bias and misinterpretation of the said study.
The rise of COVID-19 gradually changed the education globally. To contain the spread of the virus, the government of each country imposed a closure of schools and universities. Fortunately, this did not entirely stop the education, since the educational institutions around the world hold classes online to ensure that the process of teaching students does not cease and will keep going on. However, online classes have pros and cons that we should consider to ensure its effectiveness towards the learning of the students. With online classes, it could be done when anywhere, which gives us access to learning at the time of our comfort. But this also corresponds challenges since it cannot be done if there is no internet connection, for this would result to struggle to keep up with virtual learning. This setup is really new for us, but there is a need to adapt since this is the way to continue our learning and education. This study would give awareness about the pros and cons of online classes and to learn how other countries respond to the challenge.
Because of this pandemic, all the normal things that we did in the past changes. And by the help of modern technology, we can continue our education not in a face-to-face, but in the distance learning, which is online class by the use of our gadgets, laptops, and etc. So behind of those issues in an online class, the struggling to adapt, lack of motivation, connectivity issues, physical connections, and etc. We can solve those issues. We should be able to more passionate and multitask in doing online class because this is the new normal of our life. So we need to adjust. So by the help of those distance learning, we could reach our goals in doing online class.
Today's time comes with so many challenges, and one of these is online class. Because of this pandemic, we transitioned into a new way of learning, which is the online class. As a student experiencing this new way of learning, I need to know and understand what it brings, whether the good and bad of it. Online classes have a lot of challenges. It may be seen as a difficult part in our time, but it is our only option to continue our studies amidst of this pandemic. It serves as our only way or alternatives to continue and pursue our studies. And as much as I hate this setup, I need to cooperate and adapt into this new normal. In this study, our goal is to find and discuss the pros and cons of online class in a student's perspective. So this study would be both beneficial to our fellow students and as researchers, as we ourselves are students too and experiencing this kind of event.
Based on the data result by experiencing online class, as we observe the advantage and disadvantage, I conclude that more time in conducting online class at home when rating compared to an actual class. And 50% of the students in the Philippines can modify this sequence. Moreover, the less as much of advancement by using technology by gathering some data analysis on their assignment and projects. Otherwise, the disadvantage along this survey, it might result 20% that some of the all educators are not fully adapt by using the latest and advanced technology in online learning methods.
Eventually, an online research was conducted. The analysis was carried out by looking at the results on the applicability for online learning to students that had been published in books and journals. There are a lot of disadvantages in the implementation of online learning amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, and this includes the lack of students' input and the lack of sufficient technology to perform online learning effectively. But we can resolve these drawbacks by updating e-learning systems by using discussion forums and new web-based applications. As a result, I believe that there are still a lot of benefits from implementing online class, and introducing online learning in the educational institution is not a bad idea.